He told me he wanted love, real love, the kind that makes you feel alive again. And after years of living alone, my heart was ready to believe him. We laughed, we shared stories, we held hands like teenagers. But slowly, little things began to change. Requests, favors. Could you pick up my prescriptions? Would you mind making me dinner tonight? And then I saw it clearly. This wasn't just romance. He didn't just want a partner. He needed a nurse. And I had to ask myself, was this love or a slow step into caregiving I never agreed to? Dating after 60 is not for the faint of heart. It can be sweet and exciting, but it can also be complicated in ways no one warns you about. Today, I'm going to share a story that I think many of us can relate to, especially if you've ever been in a relationship where love and caregiving start to blur. I'm sharing this not to scare you, but to help you spot the signs early before you find yourself giving more than you ever planned to. And if you've ever been here before, you're not alone. This space is for all of us. The charming beginning, we met at a friend's dinner party. He was warm, funny, and had that kind of old school manners that you don't see much anymore. He pulled out my chair, complimented my dress, and asked questions that made me feel like the most interesting person in the room. We started dating quickly after. Dinners out, walks in the park, phone calls that lasted for hours. He told me about his past, a long marriage that ended after his wife passed away, a few years of trying to adjust to living alone. I shared my own story, my own losses, my dreams for the years ahead. He said he wanted love, real love. He wanted someone to laugh with, to grow old with, and those words hit me deep. After years of solitude, it sounded like everything I'd been waiting for. The first few weeks were wonderful. He'd bring me flowers, call me my sunshine, and plan little surprises. I thought to myself, maybe I found a true partner. But looking back, I see now that there were hints, small hints, like how he'd talk about how much he hated cooking for himself, how he'd mention how tricky it was to get to certain appointments without help. At the time, I brushed it off as normal conversation, but those seeds were being planted. The shift. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about situations like this. They sneak up on you. One evening he called and said he wasn't feeling well. Could I bring him some soup? Of course, I said yes. I even made it from scratch, the way my mother used to when I was sick. He was grateful, so warm in his thanks. The next week, he mentioned that his knee was bothering him. Could I drive him to the doctor? I didn't think twice. That's what caring people do, right? You help the person you care about. But soon the requests became more frequent. Could you pick up my prescriptions while you're out? I'm feeling tired, and could you run to the store for me? My laundry's piling up. Would you mind giving me a hand? At first, I told myself this was normal in any relationship. Partners help each other, but slowly I noticed something. The balance was off. It was always me doing the helping. He never asked how my errands were going or offered to do something for me in return. When I mentioned feeling tired, he'd say, "Oh, you'll feel better after you rest, but before you do, could you?" And there it was again, another task. The romantic dates became fewer. The long talks turned into him listing what he needed me to do. And each time that little voice in my head whispered, "This doesn't feel like love anymore." The breaking point. The moment that really opened my eyes came on a Saturday morning. I had planned a day for myself, a rare treat. I was going to the farmer's market, then treating myself to lunch with a friend I hadn't seen in months. He called just as I was walking out the door. His voice had that poor me tone I was starting to recognize. "I'm feeling a little off today," he said. "Would you mind coming over and helping me get my house in order? The kitchen's a mess, and I just can't face it." I hesitated. I told him I had plans. He sighed, long, heavy sigh, and said, "I guess I'll manage. I just thought you'd want to help me out." The guilt hit me like a wave. So, against my better judgment, I canceled my plans and went over. By the end of the day, I was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. I realized I hadn't laughed with him in weeks. I hadn't felt that spark we had at the beginning. Instead, I felt used. That night, I sat alone in my living room and thought about what I wanted for the rest of my life. I wanted love, yes, but I also wanted respect. I wanted partnership. I didn't want to feel like a live-in nurse without the living-in part, choosing a different kind of love. The next time we met, I decided to be honest. We sat on his couch, the TV humming in the background. I told him I cared for him, but but I couldn't keep being the person who took care of everything. That I needed love to be about mutual care, not one-sided service. His reaction was telling. He didn't argue, he didn't apologize. He just looked disappointed, almost irritated. "I thought you were different," he said. And in that moment, I understood. Different to him meant willing to give without limits. We ended things a week later. There was no big fight, no dramatic goodbye, just a quiet understanding that we weren't looking for the same thing. Walking away wasn't easy. There's always that little fear. Will I find someone else? But I knew this. I'd rather be alone than be in a relationship where I'm loved for what I can do, not who I am. And here's the truth I want all of us to remember. Love at our age should feel like a gift, not a job. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Love should never feel like a slow trade of your freedom for someone else's comfort. We all want connection. We all want to be needed. But being needed is not the same as being loved. So if you ever find yourself in a relationship where the balance tips too far, where your heart feels more drained than full, pause. Ask yourself, am I here because this makes me happy or because I feel guilty leaving? It's never too late to choose yourself. It's never selfish to protect your peace. If this story resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe, because here we talk about the truths no one warns us about, especially in love after 60.